Well, thank you very much, Peter, for that introduction, and I sincerely appreciate it. Good news is I'll get you back on track as far as the schedule really quick. So, 75 minutes might be outside of my range here. So, just before I get started, can I take a second and just get an idea of our demographics in the room here? So, take a look at yourself. Think of yourself. Which aspect of hockey are you here representing? Are you here just by show of hand? How many here are representing coaches? Good. How many here are representing as players? Okay, none. Administrators, team support staff, managers, trainers. Any trainers here? Therapists? No. Okay. Well, again, good morning, and what an honor and privilege it is to be here to speak with you today and discuss some of my thoughts about how we can all work together to improve the game of hockey here in Manitoba. We have, and always will be, a powerhouse of talent representing our branch at the national, international, and professional level, and across every program that Hockey Manitoba delivers, from players, coaches, support staff, and officials. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank each and every one of you here for the important role that you all play in providing and delivering the best opportunities for success across the province. You should be commended for your sacrifices of time and energy in order to grow the game and provide opportunities for every participant. Without people committed to the growth of the game, the experience provided for every member would be nowhere near what the level it is. I'd also like to thank the executive of Hockey Manitoba and the staff in the office for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today and deliver a message that I think is needed and perhaps offer a different perspective on how we can improve the game for everyone's sake. My special thanks also goes to Esther Thiessen for her approaching me, listening to my thoughts, and her work in having me here this morning. Esther and everyone else in the office for Hockey Manitoba do so much work, and many times it's thankless work, to ensure that every program is given the resources they need to provide for the membership. And finally, I'd like to thank the National Hockey League for honoring my request and arranging my assignments so that I could be here today. So the way I'd like to present today is ask you as individuals to have an open mind, to put aside the time-tested ideas of the past and explore an opportunity to grow that I don't believe has ever been done before. At the end of my presentation, I'd like to have an open forum and a discussion on the subject where any questions can be fielded from the audience. There'll be a microphone available for questions on the presentation if we have time, perhaps even questions you might have always wanted to ask for an NHL official. Just keep it somewhat civil. So if you can indulge me, I'd like to take some time to explain my journey to my current position as a linesman in the National Hockey League. I have and always will owe a large part of my success and opportunity to live this dream to the support I received throughout my amateur career from Hockey Manitoba, Winnipeg Minor, St. James Minor, as well as all the leagues I worked and the tremendous people I surrounded myself with. Like most of us here, I grew up in a house that was hockey crazy. I have two older brothers that played and refereed. My dad coached all of us at some point and served on various executives at the community club level and in St. James Minor. I had a mom that ensured we got to every game and practice, had 3 square meals on the table every day, and was involved with fundraising efforts for all of us. From the time I was 5 or 6 years old, I had a pair of skates on and played the game. I was an average player, I can admit that. I even get scared now when I have to pick up a broken stick. I never played for the best teams, but I always had fun when I was out on the ice. I can remember the cold air of the outdoor rinks and the cries of my teammates in the dressing room when their feet were so cold that their mom or dad was rubbing them in an attempt to warm them. I don't know why I ever thought this, but I can remember at a young age asking my parents, are there going to be real refs out there for our games? And it was when it was no longer a coach or parent, but an actual guy in a striped jersey, it was like I was in the big leagues. I remember my dad saying on many occasions to me and my brothers, as well as my younger sister, that there was no use in arguing with the referee because they won't ever change their mind, and truer words couldn't have ever been spoken. As I mentioned, both my brothers refereed, and being a typical little brother, I wanted to be just like them. When I was around 11 years old, Mr. Dale, one of my friend's dad, asked if his son and I would come out to McBay Community Center in Kirkfield, Westwood, and referee his younger son's 5, 6, 7-year-old hockey games. I remember without even hesitating to say yes, and I scrounged in my brother's ref bag for one of his plastic whistles. I remember wearing my parka with his jersey over top and skating around, dropping pucks and pulling them out from the back of the net. I don't know what it was or why, but I remember being hooked on being a referee. That first year, I was paid the hefty sum of a pizza pop and hot chocolate after my game, and I couldn't wait for the next week. The next season, when I was 12, I remember going to my first referee clinic where I could become a certified and become a real referee. I remember sitting around a big table in the hall of the community center, feet barely touching the floor, but then later on in the day, having to write my test, sitting on the floor of a dressing room using the bench as a desk because I had a social to prepare to set up for. I remember going to the arena first thing in the morning and working 3 games back to back, making maybe $8 per game and loving every minute of it. I remember the first time I had to call a penalty on the coach and the way my knees shook when I went to report it to the timekeeper. I remember the friends I made at a young age with the other referees I worked with, and how much even at that age we recognized we had to rely on each other out on the ice. There were also some adults that I met that I looked up to and had the utmost respect for. I remember working games with Dick Thompson and how much he made the players and coaches laugh with the rapport he had with them. I remember a gentleman who was such an incredible man for what he gave to the officiating program, the late Dale England, who was one of my own hockey coaches and the father of a friend of mine, and how much I felt like an adult when, as a young boy, he said, "Call me Dale when we're out on the ice together reffing, we're teammates." And there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not thankful for my friend and truest mentor, both on the ice and off, in Ian Heather, a man that to this day gives everything he has to this game and in making it better for everyone. So I played hockey for those first few years when I was beginning on my officiating journey, and my knowledge of the rules put me at an advantage not only as a player but also as a teammate. I was given the A on my jersey when one of my coaches realized I was an asset in having rule knowledge when talking to referees working our games. I remember being asked on the bench by the coach saying, "Was the referee right on that last call?" and having to turn to him and say, "Yeah, he was right." Here I was, 13 or 14 years old, being given a role like that. I remember once going up to a referee and saying to them, "I think what you just called was wrong." And I know because I'm also a referee. And what he told me was, "Well, you're not refereeing right now." So I learned a lesson very quickly that day. It is one thing to have knowledge, and there's another thing to flaunting it. So partway through my minor bantam season, something changed inside of me, and I wasn't having the enjoyment that I should have been having as a player. I played on a team that just wasn't fun. I had an assistant coach who was thrown out of a game continuously for his antics on the bench, and he was eventually suspended by St. James Minor for how he acted. I had players on my team that were more interested in getting in fights and taking big hits and removing themselves from the play where we would eventually get scored on. The writing was on the wall for me in hindsight, and I was just one of many of the kids that left the game for the wrong reason. No kid, no matter what age or level, should ever not be having fun. And if there's one thing that we can take away from this weekend, is doing everything in our collective power to ensure that this doesn't happen. So I played one more season. It was more of the same, and the season couldn't end soon enough. I wanted to quit partway through the season, but was told in no uncertain terms that I was not allowed to quit after starting something. A great life lesson and an expectation my parents put on me that I've always tried to carry forward. At the end of the year, I told my parents I was done playing, and the only thing they ever said to me was I better find something else to do because there's no way I was going to be sitting around the house. I went on to become a competitive cyclist and raced provincially and was a national champion at one point. I found a new sport that I loved, and my passion was reignited as I learned what I needed to do in order to reach the top level. Throughout the roller coaster of playing and switching over to a new sport, the one consistent thing that I did have was my officiating. My love for it never left. I reveled in the challenges it presented, and I grew as a person, learning to deal with adversity and other people's emotions. I made my very best friends from the people I shared the ice with in the game, because the brethren of officials is such a different dynamic, and it's because when we get out on the ice, there's only the 4 of us, the 3 of us, the 2 of us that we have to back each other. And to actively take a role in stepping out on the ice to enforce the rules of a game where you're only 100% right 50% of the time And knowing that there are only those 2 or 3 people in the entire building that has your back creates a bond unlike others. So I went from working little kids hockey through midget and high school hockey, the MJHL, the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League, where I met another one of my greatest friends and mentor in the late Earl Ormshaw. I worked CIU hockey, the Western Hockey League, the International Hockey, and the American League until finally, 18 years after first pulling that jersey over my head, I was hired by the National Hockey League in 2002. I've been fortunate in my amateur career to work league championships, national championships, international tournaments, and national touring events across the province. My road was challenging at times where I wanted to quit out of frustration, where I had to go to Ian and ask and get him to set me back on course, to face the battles head on, and to see past the immediate hurdles for what was to come. And as if it was yesterday, I remember pulling that NHL jersey over my head for the first time and feeling not only the pride of an accomplished goal, but also the pride of everyone that helped get me there. I feel that same emotion every night, including last night stepping out onto the ice at the MTS Center. So that was my journey to what has now become my 15th season as an NHL official. In the next month or so, I will surpass 900 career games. I will begin my season goal of once again making postseason play. And I'll take part in my 3rd outdoor game when I will be working the Heritage Classic here later this month. And I'll set out to work every night with the same energy and passion that the game deserves from me, and one that I have given it since the first game 32 years ago. I've lived experiences and been to places that without this game, I would never have had the opportunity. I've met people in the game and away from it in my travels that have made me a better person, and I've been able to provide a life for my wife and I that has left us wanting nothing. So what I ask each of you this weekend, this season, for seasons to come, is to realize that this game goes beyond just what happens on the ice. It's beyond one part of the program. It's beyond the players. It is beyond the coaches, and it is beyond the officials. It is beyond the aspirations of the individual or single team. Every stakeholder here today owes their efforts to the game itself. You owe your work to not only what will make your players better or where your teams will place compared to others. You owe it to the game itself and what you can do as an individual to make the game grow. Broaden your visions beyond nearsighted goals in favor of the game that we all love. This sport that brings communities together and has the far-reaching power to bring a nation together, this lifeblood we all as Canadians have in our souls. So why am I here today? What possible message could an official have to offer that he was afforded this incredible opportunity to a group like this? So the title of my presentation was Redefining Teamwork, a Vision for Success, and what we're trying to do is working together to encourage success across every program that Hockey Manitoba delivers. So about a month ago, I was approached by Esther to see if I'd be interested in making a presentation this weekend to the refereeing chiefs and some administrators regarding the referee mentorship program. The genesis of it is this. Back in 2002, I was involved with a group of provincial refereeing chiefs from across Canada to create a mentorship program that was going to be rolled out across the country. I was proud to be part of it and to do what I could to make the officiating program better. What we did was we took an existing coach mentorship program and modified it to the officials. We spent a weekend around a table in Calgary creating and editing the document and worked in the months after to further develop it and take it to the point of implementation in the branches. I remember for years presenting the module to the senior officials in Manitoba as well as the refereeing chiefs from around the province to try to have it implemented. It was applauded and seen as a benefit to the program, and it was exciting to see the message taken away from our meetings with the hope of it being implemented. In many communities, it was implemented to various degrees of success, while in others, it seemed to be shot down once it went for approval and the costs were discussed. Like any other endeavor in any of the programs, there's always a cost associated. For whatever reason, the cost of implementation was not seen as a worthy investment to the growth of the officials in some places. And I was dismayed to hear that on several occasions the reason it didn't work was simply because of the money. So Esther gave me an opportunity in a very candid way to give my point of view on presenting this module again to the refereeing chiefs. Although I was not against the idea of presenting it, I felt that it needed to be presented to a larger group, a group where you, the decision makers, were present, where you could hear firsthand not only the benefits of the program, but more importantly, the need to do what is ever best to serve this game. I felt it needed to be said from a different perspective than the one that has been heard before to a group like this. And it's coming from a voice that is seen across most sports as simply a necessary evil, as opposed to a fundamental building block of what makes any sport operate smoothly. And that, of course, is being the voice of an official. And here's why our voice is unique. We don't care one way or another who wins. We don't care what the score of the game is or who gets the trophy at the end of the season. We are the one and only truly disinterested party in any sport, and our only motivation is to ensure that the game is played fairly and safely to the best of our abilities. Our idea of a good hockey game is where talent is allowed to the opportunity to shine and where the game is played safely. There has not been a single game since I was 11 years old where I ever walked off the ice happier that one team won over another. There's not been a championship that I ever worked where I cared who came out on top. Even when I worked the World Junior Championships in 1997, it mattered nothing to me that Canada ultimately won. No other group involved in the game other than perhaps league representatives can actually say that. Even our office staff here at Hockey Manitoba become a bunch of homers when the province is involved in their branch play. Officials by necessity must be neutral and observe the game that way in order to be effective. To play favorites jeopardizes the integrity of any official, and most importantly, it jeopardizes the integrity of any sport, and therefore that's essential to our role. So what's my message here today? For many, many years, we have continued to see hockey and many other sports degrade. Sportsmanship has been put on the back burner for the almighty win. Coaches are being bombarded from all sides, from parents more interested in the individual performance of their child over the lessons of teamwork and self-sacrifice for the good of the team. Officials continue to drop out early in their formative years due to the harassment and abuse leveled on them from players, coaches, and parents. Many players drop out and quit playing for the very same reasons I did, and perhaps other reasons that weren't even a reality back when I was their age. If we are to truly do what is best for the game, we need to come together with a sense of teamwork across every program to make the game better and make the game the true winner. Much the same as we took what was already created in the coach's mentorship module and formed it for our needs as officials, we collectively as stakeholders and hockey minds need to come together and use all the resources we have. When I became a level 4 official and I began attending the higher clinics, I remember the times when we would have coaches speak to our clinics and give their perspective on the game and what they appreciated in an official. It wasn't always useful or beneficial ideas for what we as officials were trying to accomplish, but if nothing else, it gave us a perspective that we may not have seen before. Many times the insight from an elite coach was refreshing, though, and was also an opportunity to form a relationship away from the game based on mutual respect. I remember another time inviting my brother, Kyle, a Winnipeg Jets draft choice back in 1998, to come speak to a clinic to hear from a player's perspective. Again, a unique opportunity to hear from an elite player on his views of officials. Although once he left the room, his thoughts may have been dissected by the officials, nonetheless, it was a positive experience for everyone, including my brother. I remember him saying to me afterwards that he had no idea the camaraderie that officials have, and he just assumed that we all showed up at the game, did our game, and we went on our separate ways. There are many good things that can happen when we look across the table at what others have to offer and use their knowledge. Let's look at mentorship again, for example. The day of a referee supervisor, even at my level, coming in and kicking a garbage can and telling us what we did wrong is a thing of the past. Today, our NHL officiating managers come to coach us to be better, the same as what we ask of our mentors at the amateur level. So would it not seem appropriate that we could task a coach to speak to officiating mentors on what makes an effective coach and how to handle difficult situations? Why not go to an expert in that realm? It only makes sense. Why reinvent the proverbial wheel? I may be an expert in one area of hockey, but that does not make me an expert in any other role. What is more important is having a network of connections to source out an expert when one is needed. When we look at the dynamics of a hockey arena and where the causes of conflict tend to occur, aside from mistakes and judgment differences, the greatest cause of conflict comes from misunderstanding. Most commonly, that is a misunderstanding of the rules of the game itself. And let's go beyond the confines of the arena into the real world. And it's obvious that the largest areas that create conflict are misunderstandings between sides. Coaches are not given the instruction at their clinics on what the actual rules of the game are. I spoke to a friend of mine that coaches in rural Manitoba, and I asked him if when he took his coach's clinic, if he was taught about rules. And to my astonishment, he said yes. So I said to him, I said, well, like what? And he said, well, about setting rules with the teams, setting boundaries for parents, and how they're to deal with issues. And I said, no, not those rules. I mean the rules of the game. And he said, yeah, nothing really. So I said to him, doesn't it seem odd that you're being taught about how to deal with a team, how you're to act around children, how you're to run a practice, yet you are not taught any of the rules of the game itself? He's being given the role to form the fundamental building blocks of the game in young kids, yet he is not given the training to even teach the game within the rules. How can any coach be effective in teaching skills when they don't know the rules by which those skills will be judged? He agreed with me and went on to say, and we went on to have a long conversation. And trust me when I say that this isn't just here. It's the same across Canada, and it's the same in the US. Rules are not being taught to coaches, and in turn, players are not being taught. Players are being taught plays that may not even be legal. We even discussed the IP program and the lack of rules there. Now, I understand we need to walk the fine line of kids having fun and when they first start out, but what if we just did something simple as your stick can only be used to touch the puck, or your stick must stay on the ice? We're teaching a rule that in a most basic context covers things like slashing, tripping, high sticking, without even needing to teach what they are. So, just to give you an example, my brother again. I told you he came to one of my Western League games when I first started, and on the way back he kind of laughs at me and goes, "You really kind of screwed up that one offside play." And I said, "Which play was that?" He goes, "Well, that play where the player was standing, he had one leg outside the blue line, he had another leg inside the blue line, he was offside." And here I am with my brother, who's NHL draft, probably knows a little bit about playing, did not know the basic rule of even what an offside was. And that's not a very complex part of the game. Just the other day I was in Denver, and I had to explain to a veteran NHL player almost the exact same play. So when we look at the game has, sorry, it's a little tough to see, but the game has 5 primary stakeholders. So we got the players, we have coaches, we have managers and administrators and team and support staff, we have officials, and I'll include the parents. And when there's a weakness or an issue with one of these circles, the game is what ultimately suffers. And this in turn has a negative effect on all the other programs and all the other participants. So I'll give you another example from personal experience. I have a degree in physical education, and one of my first jobs in university was running a dryland program for a hockey school. I'd also just been hired by the Western Hockey League that season, and it was a year where clutching and grabbing and hooking was no longer going to be allowed. I remember watching an on-ice session and seeing the instructors teaching the kids to latch on with their sticks if they got beat by the opponent. So I went to one of the instructors and I told him, "What you're teaching is incorrect and will be likely penalized this season." To which I was abruptly told, "Mind my own business, get out there, make sure the kids do more push-ups." And I know that's not the norm, and it's an extreme case, but what it points to is incorrect instruction of plays. And more importantly, it shows a culture and a mindset of not working together to make the game better for everyone. So let's follow the snowflake as it rolls down the hill. Player gets taught incorrectly. Parents watch what coaches teach, not knowing it's illegal. Coach learns its drills from another coach. Player makes an illegal play on the ice, referee calls a penalty. Parents get mad at the ref because that's what their child was taught by the coach. Coach gets mad at the ref because he or she thinks they know what the rules are. Parents get mad at the coach because their child's in the penalty box. Referee gets yelled at. Players get frustrated when the referee calls more penalties. Parents and coaches are mad at the referee. Referee's the only one in the arena that is likely has ever picked up a rule book. The referee takes abuse. Players get frustrated more and the game becomes even chippier. See where it's going? The snowflake has become an avalanche and has the potential to create havoc in its path. And then we end up here. The environment created by the misunderstandings leads to abuse, leads to violence, leads to teaching children that it's okay to disrespect figures of authority, or even worse, by minimizing the opportunity for abuse to happen not in the correct way by reinforcing positive post-game interactions between players, coaches, and officials, but instead by eliminating this opportunity to act with sportsmanship in class. Don't put the ownership on the participants to control their emotions, but rather teach participants to put the blame on the officials for a loss. We perpetuate the revolving door of officials leaving the game, which stifles the long-term development of quality officials who work with confidence in knowing that their association supports them in their role in the game. And what are we doing here? Running from conflict resolution does not resolve anything. It is the absolute wrong message to send, and as an aside, I implore any one of you that is considering following what Calgary did, dismiss the idea immediately. When we look at the role of the official, it is to ensure that the game is played fairly and safely. That's what our job ultimately comes down to, safe and fair. In many cases, we are asking officials to not only to work to their best abilities to ensure that the game is played safe and fair, but we're also tasking them to be a disciplinarian and a teacher all at the same time. How can we expect 1, 2, or 3 officials out on the ice to do that? And how can we put that responsibility on a young official that even at the age of 13 or 14 probably was the only one in the arena that has ever even looked at a rule book? And when that young official needs guidance from experienced senior officials both on the ice and off as mentors, at times we put the cost ahead of the benefits to the game. We all need to do a better job of taking the time long before the coach makes up his first practice, long before the parents put their son or daughter out on the ice, long before a player learns how to body check. We need to take the time to ensure a grasp of the rules of the game to ensure that the game is played from an understanding of fairness and safety from all members of the game, instead of just by the reactionary role of an official on the ice. By the time the official has to call the penalty, it's too late. And when the penalty is a result of careless or reckless play that causes an injury, whether or not the referee calls a penalty or not, we as stakeholders need to take ownership of not preparing the participants better before they even take the ice. And that includes everyone's preparation, players, coaches, officials. We need to ensure that the strategies of the game are taught with an understanding of the rules by which the game will be officiated. We need a mutual respect among players to play the game safely, and that there is something far more important to this game than just a win. So here's a real life example. My wife and I played dominoes. Anybody play dominoes? So we were taught to play by some friends of ours. And for anyone that doesn't know about dominoes, dominoes is kind of like saying, let's play cards. I mean, there's tons of different cards games, and there's tons of different domino games. So when we have people out to our cottage on a night, we'll pull out the dominoes, and we'll ask the people that are there, we'll say, you ever played dominoes before? Most of the time it's no. But if the answer is yes, then the discussion turns to which game do you want to play? And if the answer is no, what's the first thing that everyone does? You teach the rules of the game. You can do this, you can do that. This is the strategy behind it. And then you say, okay, well, let's play just one game just for fun before we actually play a real game. So we can learn the rules and then play from an even level of understanding the basics of the game. First practice game happens, rules are taught and reinforced, plays and moves are thought of, questions are asked and formulations are made on how to win. Then the real game begins, once everyone knows what they are. And you know what else happens once everybody plays from a level playing field? There's fun, there's enjoyment, there's not adversity between everyone. So why do we treat it differently when it comes to sport? Why do we teach skills and plays before understanding what the rules even are? Is the purpose of meaningful practice not, in fact, practice that best simulates actual play? Why teach skills that are illegal if they can't be used? Why create an opportunity for failure through poor training? Anyone ever heard the saying, fail to prepare, prepare to fail? So let's think bigger. Most teams tend to score more goals when they're either at even strength or on a power play rather than shorthanded. Conversely, teams tend to get scored on more often when they are shorthanded. Does it not seem a logical assumption to make that if my team can stay out of the penalty box more often than my opponent does, my team will have a greater chance of scoring goals? And if my team scores more goals, do they not tend to win more games? So these are stats from the NHL website from last season. These are the top 5 teams. It's Washington, Dallas, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, LA. The second column is the number of wins. Penalty and minute ranking. So the lower the ranking, the less average minutes they had per game that they spent in the penalty box. And then the last column is goals for when they played 5-on-4. You can see that they're obviously very successful when they're 5-on-4. Now we'll take a look at the bottom rankings. Number of wins. They also tend to spend more time in the penalty box, which means their shorthand squad is having to work harder. And conversely, their goals against average 4-on-5, their goals against for the season almost matches identically what the goals for of the top 5 teams are when they play 5-on-4, when they play full strength. So if I were a coach, I think I'd rather teach my players strategy that involves playing within the confines of the rule and strategizing heavily on my power play than trying to get away with illegal plays and hoping that the referee doesn't make the call. All right, so let's go even bigger. When players are taught to play within the confines of the rules, they become even better players because they use their skill as opposed to cheating to win. This creates a better overall player. Their skills, simply because they are taught from a rules perspective, are more refined than those of a player not taught from the same perspective. Let's keep going. When coaches coach within the rules, with the rules in mind, and form strategies and plays with that mindset, their teams will perform better generally. The success of a team shines heavily on the quality of the coach. So, ball keeps rolling. When teams are successful within their association and leagues because they are taught to play within the confines of the rules, when they play in championships against teams that play with the win-at-all-cost mentality, the tendency would be that they have the greater chances of success, which in turn makes the branch a success. When officials are allowed to work in an environment where we are all working together for the best interest of the game, they will not face the adversity and animosity that exists in arenas because there is less room for misunderstanding when every party is educated. Officials will stay in the game through their formative years and not only perform better on the ice, but will also serve as the mentors for the future young officials. So now the ball is going even faster. When Hockey Manitoba and every single member of its programs, from coaches to players to managers and of course officials, is given the best opportunity to succeed, the branch will be seen as a leader and role model in how the game can truly move forward and be great. And the ball finally stops rolling. But it doesn't. It can't. It rolls faster and faster and stops for nothing. Success breeds success. The future of the game is in a good place because every member has been given a chance to reach their greatest potential in an environment that promotes growth on the backs of each other rather than at each other's expense. Without that, it's like the Cold War mentality of mutual assured destruction. We will all fail to reach our full potential until we realize that we can't achieve it without every participant's buy-in. Anybody know who Bill Veeck is? Anybody? So Bill Veeck was an owner of several baseball teams, both minor pro and pro. And he was one of the first owners to have crazy promotions at games. But he was also a leader in making change within the game itself. He hired Larry Doby, the first African-American player in the American League history, and hired a 42-year-old rookie named Satchel Paige, who became the oldest rookie in Major League history. Probably where this quote comes from. I won't tell you the story, but look it up on Google because it's pretty creative what he did in order to stretch the rules. But he managed to stretch the rules while still playing within the confines of what was legal play at the time. So what do? What we do is we cooperate. We work together. We help each other. We form committees between the programs to meld the same core ideas that work individual to see if they can become useful elsewhere. We create committees for game development rather than only independent committees of player, coaches, and officials development. We share thoughts and ideas. We put aside the us versus them in favor of us for them. We have open dialogue between coaches and officials. We provide parent rule sessions. We institute a rule session for players and coaches at the start of the season using the resource of senior officials to teach. We bridge the gap between parties and give the opportunity to get to know the other side in a positive, non-competitive environment. We recognize and acknowledge and value every member's achievement in the game. For example, we acknowledge that the official work in the final game of a tournament or championship is as much an achievement for that individual as it is for the players or coaches being there. We applaud and reward the success of every participant, not only to value the individual, but to reinforce to future participants that you are important to our collective success. What's the logo here? Anybody? Apple. Okay. Of course we know it's Apple. Apple is the largest company in the world. A company with so much liquid cash that they could buy Coca-Cola and Disney and still have money left over. They're the most powerful tech company on the planet. My wife and I have invested a lot of money in this company. Fortunately, it's all been in product and none in stocks. Apple is a company that took an idea from a couple of guys in a garage to push the threshold further and further back of what is possible, to rally against the old idea of what a computer was, to creating an entirely new technological environment that was different and unique and great. It is a company that takes pride in taking ideas from one product, seeing what works, and including it into a completely different product. It's a leader in innovation and an outside-the-box mentality. People thought Steve Jobs was absolutely crazy when he took the iPod and turned it into an iPhone. People thought Apple would cannibalize their own computer business when they introduced the iPad, but they were able to recognize that although similar in some ways, they were still dramatically different items, and there was room for both of them to thrive. And just a couple weeks ago, they turned the world on its literal ear by taking out the ever-present headphone jack, a technology, incidentally, which has been around since the late 1800s for telephone technology, took it out of the iPhone for a technology that is far superior in sound quality. They've worked tirelessly to various degrees of success so that one product communicates with another seamlessly to improve the experience for the user. They have revolutionized how we buy music, watch TV, get our news, and how we pay for our groceries. They've done that not with the fear of failure or maintaining status quo, but the idea of shaping a new idea of what normal is and can be. They have revolutionized our daily lives and how we communicate with each other and continue to set the new standards in technology. So let me ask you once again, what's the logo you see? Look in the corner. Why can't Manitoba lead the way in embracing ideas and concepts to make the game better? Why can't we take what we already have that works on an individual level and see how we can utilize our assets and resources to better serve the game? Why can't Manitoba rise to the challenge of making things better? Why can't Manitoba take what already works, modify it, add to it to make our game the best that it can be? Why can't we come up with new and innovative ways to deliver a better program and experience for every member? Why can't our branch be leaders in making our game better? And why can't we invest and take a gamble on our own potential and ultimately our own success? We can. But it takes courage, and it takes leadership, and it takes commitment. It takes the desire to make everyone better. It takes the desire to make the self better in order to make the whole better. It takes seeing the worth and value in everyone and rejoicing and showing pride at every participant's success, no matter what their role in the game is. Every person in this room right now has the opportunity to get behind this ball and nudge it forward. As stakeholders, by definition, you have a vested interest in doing what it takes to make our game great. You have a responsibility to ensure the opportunity of success for every member that participates. The same as we get excited when we hear of a player being successful, we should be excited when we hear of an official that is getting an assignment, excited when a coach is promoted to a higher level, proud when a trainer is recognized for their abilities and gets an opportunity to work with a provincial or national team. Sport has the unique ability to foster worth in people. It has the ability to grow people within the game and, more importantly, away from the game. It has the opportunity to bridge gaps between people and cultures in a way that promotes sportsmanship in the pursuit of excellence. Sport unites. Sport teaches. It teaches us to be better, and it teaches us to expect more of ourselves and expect more of others. Sport is a microcosm of society, a small representation of the bigger picture. Teamwork, facing adversity and authority, dealing with conflict, playing within the rules, these are all meaningful practice for the reality of everyday life. We, all as stakeholders in this game, have the ability to form the basis by which all participants can be better in their everyday lives. So I saw this picture the other day while researching, and I was intrigued. Not only by the powerful message written in the words, but more the imagery of the photo itself. At the outset, it's simply 5 hands together to form an interesting shape and a sense of togetherness and cohesiveness. Very fitting for what we are all doing here this weekend, working towards making the game better, working to accomplish that, working together to accomplish that. But then I looked deeper into it, and I tried to imagine who put their hand in there first? Who initiated this shape? You cannot tell. I challenge you, look at any one of those fingers. Count 4 more fingers around. Are you at the end, or did you just get to the beginning? You have no idea, and there's no way to tell. It became even more fitting with that in mind and what our goal is this weekend. It doesn't matter who starts it. What matters is that we started, that it is started, and we collectively work together to ensure success and to foster growth of our membership at any level, in any role, and at any age. Back in 1994, I took a first step in my career by being selected to work the 1994 Canada Cup in Brandon. I was a lot younger then, way less gray hair, and for one of the first times I saw my effort being rewarded at a national championship. I also remember working with a much younger President Bill Whitehead at this tournament when he refereed and I lined. And unbeknownst to me at the time, a true friend of the officiating program here in Manitoba was also there, and our past president, Brian Franklin. I was fortunate to be selected to line the gold medal game, and I remember walking into the dressing room and seeing a handwritten sign on the dressing room wall with this message written on it. Success comes to those that see a difficult situation as an opportunity. So simple, yet so incredibly strong. I've carried that with me ever since. I have no idea who hung it in that dressing room, and I have no idea who the quote was by. I passed it on to others. I've used it at referee clinics, and today I share it with you. It has been a guiding message in my journey within the game and within my personal life. What I'm asking you to embark on here isn't easy. It's changing the mindset of what's best for me to what's best for the game. This is a difficult situation, but it is also an opportunity. It is an opportunity to bring about change in a way that we haven't done before. It's about bringing like-minded people together to work together for the common good. It's using resources and bringing out the potential of everyone. It is about not looking at the cost associated with funding a program like mentorship, but instead looking at it from the perspective of what will it cost by not. It's going back to your community and not waiting for programs to be brought to you for approval, but in leading the charge and demanding that they exist. It is so simple an idea, yet so different from where we are. It's asking each of us to perhaps step out of our comfort zone. It's asking each of us to do what is best for the game. It'll be 15 years since the last Manitoban was promoted to the National Hockey League as an official. In that time, many great players have come from the province, some with potential Hall of Fame careers. In that time, coaches from Manitoba have excelled at the professional, national, and international level, including my own cousin, Dwayne Galloway. In that time, a few officials have knocked on the door, including Kelsey Mahoney. Kelsey, you here? There he is. All right. Kelsey was invited to attend the officials' combine this year in Buffalo, and from everything I heard, he did very well. In that time, I've seen trainers and support staff move from amateur levels to minor pro and finally professional levels. In that same time, I've seen many officials, male and female, rise to the challenge to work nationally and internationally representing our branch with the highest degree of professionalism and integrity, and I'm always excited to hear great things coming from this branch. All around this province, there are many more people from all parts of the game that have the potential to be great and to do amazing things and to be the future leaders of our game, and it will take your dedication to ensure that they have every opportunity to succeed. As you continue forward this season, keep that in mind that you have the power to make positive changes for our membership. I thank you for your dedication. I commend your efforts towards the success of every Hockey Manitoba participant from every community in the province. And finally, I thank you for your time for listening to my vision for success. Thank you.